Good afternoon and welcome everybody to our virtual brown bag series presentation for today. We are very fortunate to have David Graves with us to present information about the Atomic Energy Agency. A few housekeeping details first. During his presentation, we will ask you to put your questions into the Q&A chat available to you through Teams. And those questions will be dealt with after the presentation. The presentation is being recorded and it'll be available to all of us later on the YouTube page after today. So welcome to you. We believe that we have a number of our current UTA students, faculty, staff, particularly the members of the American Nuclear Society student chapter, who is a very active group on campus. And we are very appreciative today of this opportunity to be part of the virtual brown bag series. So our presenter, David Graves, is the, or was, I guess, prior to retirement, the senior nuclear officer for safety in the International Atomic Energy Agency. That is based in Vienna, and he is living in Vienna and is presenting today from there. Prior to his stint of 8 years in the IAEA, he spent 24 years in the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, doing operator licensing and reactor inspections. The nice connection there is that Region 4 of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission is based in Arlington, Texas. So he really has a UTA connection that we are taking advantage of today. Prior to his time at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, he was in reactor operations and training in a commercial nuclear facility, a DOE, test reactor, and U.S. Navy submarine reactors. There was another nice Arlington connection in that David's wife, Martha, was Director of Outreach for the College of Engineering at UTA. So lots of reasons that we are very appreciative of David spending some time with us today to talk to us about the International Atomic Energy Agency. IAEA 101 is his presentation. So David, thank you so much for spending the time with us today, and we're really looking forward to what you have to tell us about IAEA. Let me just mention, this is an independent agency of the United Nations and is the world's central intergovernmental forum for scientific and technological cooperation in the nuclear field. So lots of relevant information for us, and thank you again, David, for spending time with us today.
You're welcome, Lynn, and thank you very much for the introduction. As Lynn said, one of the things, what I'll intend to cover today is kind of like a brief introduction to the IAEA, covering the organization and some of the activities that IAEA is involved in. And as we go through the presentation, I'll start focusing more and more on my specific activities and what I did. And then toward the end, I'll talk a little bit about the various employment opportunities at IAEA and different things that you can be involved in and how to get in touch with them. So as Lynn said, I was with IAEA for a little over 8 years, and specifically I was in the regulatory activities section, which was a natural feed from being with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for a couple of decades. my full time with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, I was in the Arlington office, in the Region 4 office, just down the ways from you there. The various operations facilities at Westinghouse, the pressurized water reactor under construction in South Carolina, and a Department of Energy test reactor at Idaho National Laboratory. At the time, it was Idaho National Engineering Laboratory, and specifically, it was the loss of fluid test reactor, where we conducted loss of coolant accident experiments on a functional pressurized water reactor. And then I spent some time as a reactor operator on board Navy submarine operating reactors, and also as an instructor at the nuclear training facility for the U.S. Navy in Idaho. The general mission of the IAEA is maximizing the benefit from the use of nuclear technology while minimizing the risk and safety, security, and proliferation. As we go through this, you'll see that there are a number of different activities, both from a promotional side for the use of nuclear energy and radioactive materials, and also the safety side, as well as trying to limit the nuclear proliferation of nuclear materials from a weapons standpoint. Just some general information about IAEA. It was founded in 1957 as an offshoot of a speech that President Eisenhower gave regarding the peaceful uses of nuclear power, the Atoms for Peace program. There are currently 172 member states of IAEA. And as Lynn said, it's an independent agency of the United Nations. So just being a member of the United Nations does not automatically make you a member of IAEA. It has to be applied for separately and accepted. From a staff standpoint, there's a little over, we have had over 2,560 professional and support staff with over 100 countries represented. The headquarters are in Vienna, and that photo there is a picture of the headquarters building complex. It's called the Vienna International Center. Even though the headquarters are in Vienna, there are 3 different scientific laboratories and research centers that are associated with IAEA. In Austria, in a little town called Seibersdorf, there's a laboratory complex where they do a lot of analysis, sample analysis and things like that. In Monaco, there is a ecological and environmental monitoring laboratory. And in Italy, at the university in Trieste, Italy, there's a physics research center that IAEA has a cooperative agreement with.
David, your slides are not advancing. I think you're on maybe the 2nd or 3rd slide already.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's not advancing?
David, if you will just use your mouse to click over on that left-hand column, the small slides on the left-hand side. There we go.
There we go. Got it.
Thank you.
Okay, so just use those.
Yeah, let's do that at this point.
That's good.
Okay. Okay, I won't go through the same information again there, but I'll sort of pick up at the 3 scientific laboratories in Seibersdorf, Austria, Monaco, and Trieste, Italy. There are two remote safeguards offices, which we'll talk a little more about safeguards later. There's one in Tokyo and one in Toronto. From a money standpoint, obviously nothing functions very well without money. But the budget in 2020 was approximately $418 million for the regular budget. Technical cooperation was a little over $96 million, and extra budgetary contributions are a little over $53 million. Where that money comes from, it's all by donations from the member states. Regular budget covers the normal functioning of the agency. Technical cooperation budget provides funding and assistance to, I would say, developing countries, the lesser developed countries that need assistance with various aspects of nuclear power and the use of nuclear and radiological material. And that assistance is provided, again, by donations from member states that can afford the donations. And we'll talk a little more about the technical cooperation program in a little bit. And extra budgetary contributions are funds that are contributed by member states that basically have strings attached. They donate money for specific purposes or for specific functions or programs where they direct what they want the money to go toward. Also, as an aside, right under the photograph there, you see the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to the IAEA in 2005. It was primarily for their work with the weapons inspectors in Iraq from a couple of years before that. That prize was divided halfway to the Director General at the time, which was Mohammed Al-Baradei, and half to the staff of IAEA. I just missed out on the Nobel Prize. I got there in 2006, so so be it. There are 6 different departments in the IAEA. There's the Department of Management, which is the administrative section that covers HR, budget, visa sections, things like that. The Technical Cooperation Department is the department that is the bridge between developing member states and the technical departments of IAEA. They perform the administrative functions and program planning that member states need and coordinate that with the technical staff in IAEA to ensure that the projects get accomplished. The Nuclear Sciences and Applications is another department that deals with more specific uses of nuclear applications. Well, there's a typo. It should be Department of Nuclear Sciences and Applications. Sorry. Safeguards. Whenever you hear in the press when they talk about the nuclear watchdogs, that's usually the safeguards inspectors they're talking about. Safeguards is the department that is concerned with the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. So they're the ones that go out and do the weapons inspections, accounting for nuclear materials, things like that. So they are the ones that more or less you hear about in the press most of the time. Nuclear energy is a department that is primarily concerned with assisting member states with the development of nuclear energy. They are primarily on the development side to assist member states with the promotion and development of nuclear energy. And it's usually nuclear power plants, nuclear waste, that sort of activity. Nuclear safety and security, that department deals again with nuclear safety issues, nuclear safety, emergency preparedness, the safety and security of radioactive sources, as well as the security of radioactive material. And from the nuclear safety side, it doesn't just include nuclear power plants and things like that. It also includes nuclear or radioactive sources. While there are only a limited number of countries that have nuclear power plants, almost every country has some use for radioactive sources, whether it's medical uses, industrial uses, radiography, sterilization of foods. There are all kinds of activities that use radioactive materials, and this department is concerned with the safety of that nuclear material as well as radiation protection safety. This is a general organization chart for the IAEA. It's pretty busy, but it covers just shows the 6 main departments there and how they're broken up. Each one of the departments has a number of different divisions associated with it. And I was in the Department of Nuclear Safety and Security, in the nuclear installation safety, which had a number of sections in it, of which regulatory activities was one of them. One change on this organization chart, it shows the Director General as Mr. Romano. Mr. Romano passed away a year and a half ago or something like that, and he's been replaced by Mr. Rafael from Argentina, and so he's was just confirmed here within the last year or so. And the distribution of the budget, you can see that the Safeguards has the lion's share of the budget. They do a lot of traveling. They go to all sorts of countries, doing these nuclear inspections. To ensure that nuclear materials are not diverted for weapons use or anything like that. So they comprise the biggest part of the IAEA's budget. And then you can see the other ones there: technical cooperation 6%, nuclear safety 8%, energy 10%, applications 11%, and admin management 26%. So just to start going through each one of the departments a little more, the Department of Technical Cooperation, they assist with the achievement of the sustainable development priorities of each country. And what they do is working with the member states discuss with IAEA what their needs are related to specific activities or services that we could help them with. We would come to agreement with the member state on what support they needed, and then the technical cooperation group, along with the member state, would work with the IAEA technical departments, and they would develop plans and programs to address those identified needs. And those activities would be accomplished by IAEA providing funding and other technical resources as necessary within the framework or whatever was allowed by IAEA. And this could be in the way of training, it could be in the way of material support, it could be equipment. There are lots of different activities. It just depends on what the member states needed at any particular time. And also, as I mentioned earlier, the funding was provided by member states' donations. The Department of Nuclear Sciences and Applications, they have very specific activities related to these different topics: food and agriculture, health, water resources, marine and terrestrial environment, physical and chemical applications, and cancer therapies. Again, they did lots of research and assistance related to insect sterilization, agriculture assistance, water purification, lots of things that where nuclear radioactive materials might be used in these activities. They're not obvious to a lot of us, but there are a lot of things that they can use them for that they get involved in. And again, all of these different departments would be working through the Technical Cooperation Department to provide these assistances to member states. The Department of Safeguards, as I mentioned, that was the nuclear watchdogs. And what these inspectors do is they independently verify the declarations made by member states about their nuclear materials and activities. And the way they do their work is based on the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. If you've heard about the NPT, that's what that treaty is. Entered into force into 1970, and there are 190 states that are signed parties to that non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. North Korea, which is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, they withdrew from the treaty a couple of years ago. So IAEA doesn't really send any inspectors to North Korea anymore. And there are some notable countries that are not signatories to the non-proliferation treaty. India and Pakistan were not members to it and have since developed nuclear weapons. Israel is also not a signatory to it, and while not declared, it's generally accepted that Israel might have nuclear weapons, and so those countries are not signatories to the treaty. Department of Nuclear Energy, again, they provide a number of activities, support to countries with existing nuclear power programs and support to countries that are either developing new programs or interested in developing nuclear power programs. And some of the things they do in addition to providing training and guidance, they develop the methodology and guides. There's a whole series of documents called the Nuclear Energy Series documents that provide guidance to member states on development of nuclear power programs. And you can see the other activities that they get involved in: information sharing, technology transfer, and specific review services. You'll see this review services show up in a couple of different departments, where once the member states embark on their programs for either operating nuclear power plants, or operating nuclear facilities, or the intent to operate nuclear facilities, IAEA will provide review services where we would go in and take a look at their activities thus far, compare it to the expectations from the IAEA guidance, and basically give them a report on what type of progress they're making. And with regard to nuclear power today, there are 443 nuclear power plants operating in 32 countries. I took this data from the website here just a week or two ago, so it's relatively current. There are currently 50 reactors under construction in 19 different countries. Closer to home, there are 94 operating power plants in the U.S. and 2 that are currently under construction in Georgia. And this information and lots more information is available on the IAEA website under the PRIS, which is the Power Reactor Information System. It has a lot of detailed information about the status of nuclear power around the world. This gives you an idea of the number of reactors that are operating in these different countries. And the US right now has the largest number of power plants, followed by France, China, and Japan. Although it's expected within the next 10 to 15 years that China may be the #1 nuclear power country in the world, because they're building quite a few new facilities right now. This is reactors under construction. You can see that China is way ahead of everyone else with their ongoing construction. And the U.S. is pretty far down the list, where the U.S. only has two plants under construction right now. This slide is a little bit dated. I didn't like the format of the current slide, but this is showing the age of the reactors as of January 2009. So you could add another 10 or 12 years to this and see that the vast majority of the power plants that are in operation today across the world are, they're in the 30 to 35-year-old range. So the nuclear fleet worldwide is getting pretty aged. And the distribution of replacement nuclear power is somewhat skewed. The Middle East is pretty interested in developing nuclear power. China and Russia are both building nuclear facilities. But in the West, what we consider the West, Western Europe, the US, Canada, are really not building much in the way of new nuclear power plants. This next slide having to do with nuclear infrastructure development. This is for the countries that are interested in developing nuclear power. This starts forming a bridge between the Department of Nuclear Energy and the Department of Nuclear Safety. The document on the left, the IAEA Nuclear Energy Series, Milestones in the Development of a National Infrastructure for Nuclear Power, provides a roadmap to countries that want to develop a nuclear power program and gives them various subject areas in which they would need to develop. The document on the right, Establishing the Safety Infrastructure for a Nuclear Power Program, is a similar format in that it provides a listing of a number of topics that a country needs to develop a nuclear power program, but it is focusing on the safety requirements associated with IAEA from the Department of Nuclear Safety. The nuclear energy document doesn't necessarily focus solely on the safety elements. It focuses more on the overall national infrastructure that would be required to develop a nuclear power program, taking into account many physical characteristics of the country, as well as the human resources development in a country necessary to build and operate a nuclear power program. And the same things are taken into account in the safety infrastructure. That human resources development is a huge issue for countries that want to develop nuclear power. A lot of times people focus on nuclear engineers and nuclear physicists with regard to human resources development, but the development of a nuclear power program takes a huge array of engineers to develop. The country needs to have a good program for developing mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, civil engineers, chemical engineers, structural engineers, hydraulic engineers, just any number of disciplines are necessary for a functioning nuclear power program. While you do need a certain core of nuclear physicists and nuclear engineers, those other types of engineers can get the nuclear training necessary to fit into the nuclear power program. And it's really important that you have a well-rounded human resources development program to be able to develop and support a nuclear power program. Getting more specifically to the Department of Nuclear Safety and Security, I made that bridge from nuclear energy to nuclear safety and security. The functions that this department did, which was the department I was in, we were responsible for the development and revision of nuclear safety standards, which includes fundamental safety requirements, safety guides, the application of the safety standards and feedback to member states, support for implementation of conventions and codes of conduct, and IAEA also operates an incident and emergency center in their in the Vienna International Center there in their headquarters in Vienna. The Incident and Emergency Center is a pretty important center there. It coordinates information regarding radiological and nuclear incidents worldwide. It was probably the last major incident that we got involved in there was the Fukushima accident back in 2011. I was a pretty active participant during that event, and that went on for weeks and months. The Incident Response Center was staffed 24 hours a day. And while there's a core staff for the Incident Emergency Center, it draws on the other technical departments in IAEA for staffing to make sure that it can run and function as long as necessary. The IAEA safety standards, again, is one of the main tenets of the Department of Nuclear Safety and Security. We were responsible for developing the international standards for safety as part of the IAEA statute. And what those are for is the protection of health and minimization of danger to life and property. And we assisted member states with the applications of those standards. In addition to developing the standards, we also provided guidance for the implementation of those standards and the review of the implementation of those standards through the various review services. Safety standards has 3 different levels: fundamentals, requirements, and guides. You can see there what they cover: the objectives, concepts, principles. The requirements, these are things that they're required to do, and then guides are things that they should do. And these things are implemented via conventions. I made mention earlier of some conventions. There are a number of conventions that IAEA oversees, and one of them is the Convention on Nuclear Safety. Member states sign up to these conventions, which they are agreeing that they will abide by and implement the safety standards of the IAEA in their nuclear and radiological activities. And this is just if you want to call it a quick rundown of a particular set of safety standards for the regulatory field. You have the fundamental safety principles, which applies across the board to all aspects. Then there's a more specific safety requirement that's governmental, legal, and regulatory framework for safety. This would provide guidance to member states on what they need to do to develop a legal and regulatory framework for safety. An example of that in the U.S. would be the Atomic Energy Act of 1954 is the legislative act that provides for a nuclear power program and oversight program in the U.S. The Atomic Energy Act of 1954 established the Atomic Energy Commission, and that went on for a number of years. What turned out to be I want to say a problem, but an issue with the Atomic Energy Act was it provided the promotion and regulation of nuclear power under the same legislative and organizational umbrella. Well, it was determined that that was not necessarily a good idea. You don't want to have the operators and promoters and the regulators under the same organizational umbrella. So the Energy Reorganization Act, another legislative act in 1974, split apart the Nuclear Regulatory Commission from what later became the Department of Energy. So now the Nuclear Regulatory Commission sole function is regulation. It's not involved in promotion, and Department of Energy is now responsible for promotion of nuclear activities on a national level. And then underneath the safety standards, there are a number of safety guides. These are just a couple of examples of safety guides. Organization of the regulatory body, functions of the regulatory body, licensing process for nuclear installations. Those are all activities that a regulatory body would normally perform, and this provides some guidance for regulatory bodies to perform those functions. Again, this is just a sample. There are a number of them, and there are safety requirements and safety guides covering many, many different areas. This just happens to be one for the regulatory body. And in addition to the safety guides, there are lower tier documents, the safety report series and technical documents, IAEA technical. They provide information, more information regarding various topics, but they don't rise to the level of even a safety guide. Again, as I mentioned earlier, that I'd be focusing more on what functions I did and our organization did. In the Department of Nuclear Safety, there are a number of review services that are conducted, and these review services are organized and coordinated by IAEA, and they go out and verify the implementation of safety standards in these various subject areas. The legal, governmental, and regulatory framework. We had a mission called the Integrated Regulatory Review Service mission, which was one that I was very heavily involved in. From an operational safety standpoint, there are a couple of review missions. There are also missions for research reactors, engineering and technical safety, emergency preparedness, security. So all of these different subject areas have safety requirements associated with them and associated review services to see how member states are in fact implementing those. The Integrated Regulatory Review Service, the IRS mission, it's called integrated because it takes into account not only the nuclear power side of the house, but also radiation protection, radioactive waste, radioactive transport of materials, nuclear materials and sources, nuclear installations, emergency response. All of those different activities were folded into the Integrated Regulatory Review Service. And the teams are led by member states, but coordinated by IAEA. My function would have been to put the team together. A member state would come to us and request a review mission. None of these review missions are mandated by IAEA. They are strongly suggested and recommended, but they're voluntary by the member state. They have to request it. Once they request it, a coordinator would be assigned, and the coordinator would start assembling a team and determining the scope of the mission. And the team itself would be led by representatives from member states, and the team members would all come from member states. For a full scope mission, team would typically be 20 to 25 persons, and the review mission itself would typically last 2 weeks. But the preparatory work for that mission would start probably about a year early. It would take 9 months to a year to put the mission together, conduct the mission over a couple of weeks, and the report would be issued officially within 3 months or so after the end of the mission. The missions that I was directly involved in were the ones listed there: France, 2 in Australia, Germany, Mexico, Sweden, Belgium, Iran, Pakistan, Canada, 2 in Vietnam, Romania, and also in Vietnam. Not only did we do the safety review service mission, but we also did the nuclear infrastructure review from the nuclear energy standpoint, which takes a slightly different scope and interacts with different people, but is looking at some of the same subject areas. Other activities that I got involved in directly, in addition to the IRS missions, were the development of safety standards. We conducted training workshops, both national and regional, typically through the Technical Cooperation Program, where member states would request various training missions on certain topics, and we would put together workshops to address those needs. Same way with regulatory development assistance. In addition to just training workshops, they may also ask us to review certain documents of theirs or certain activities that they have ongoing, and we would provide them some feedback on those activities. We also conducted the nuclear power plant infrastructure development reviews and assistance. As I mentioned earlier, the Incident and Emergency Center responder. During that Fukushima event, I was the reactor safety team coordinator during my shifts when I was up there. And I usually had 2 or 3 reactor safety specialists working with me to perform those functions. We also coordinated with other international organizations, specifically with us for nuclear regulation or infrastructure development, the Nuclear Energy Agency of the OECD, also the VVER, or Water Energy Reactor Regulatory Forum. The water energy reactors is a Russian design pressurized water reactor that there's a regulatory forum where operators of those particular reactors would meet and discuss technical issues and interact with IAEA, and we would interact on what IAEA was doing with regard to regulatory activities and so on. And during my time at IAEA, I visited over 30 countries in my official capacity. So then a question may come up about working for IAEA, the various jobs, about how you get into IAEA and what they do. The professional staff is typically very experienced. They don't, the normal path is for most of the staff is IAEA doesn't want to train people technically. They want people that are already trained with lots of experience and to bring them in at a fairly high professional level. And then you just have to learn the IAEA bureaucracy and administrative processes. General services staff is typically the admin and clerical staff. They also have a junior professional officer program, which is where they take typically people right out of school, and they will come in as a junior professional in one of the departments, and it's typically a 1 to 2 year program where you will participate in the activities for whatever department you're in, and basically start developing your professional expertise in some field related to IAEA activities. Cost-free experts are typically experts from member states where they are supplied to IAEA and the member state pays for them to work at IAEA. And then you have consultants and experts who typically work on short-term contracts or specific activities or tasks for IAEA. And then there's also an IAEA internship program where they'll bring in interns that are not even technically part of the professional staff, but they get involved in various activities related to IAEA, and they typically can last up to a year. I have a couple of slides that just shows what types of jobs are available at IAEA now. I took these screenshots just from a couple of weeks ago. So the vast majority of positions are in Vienna, and they run the range all the way from admin type staff, librarians. They have consultants, emergency preparedness staff, livestock geneticist and breeder, IT staff, just any number of activities. Radiation officer, knowledge management specialist, nuclear medicine. Again, the senior nuclear security officer. It covers a wide range of professional disciplines. I also had provided a list of references here. If somebody wanted to ask me a specific question later, there's my email address. There's the website address for the Power Reactor Information System, Nuclear Infrastructure Development, IAEA Safety Standards, various other publications, IAEA Employment. A couple of other videos on here. The Safeguards Inspector safeguards inspector video. This particular individual is a graduate of a university in Texas. She came into IAEA under that junior professional officer program, and was involved in that program for a year or two, and then eventually ended up becoming a safeguards inspector. And this is a short video, about 5 minutes, that gives you a brief overview of her job, what she does when she goes out on an inspection, and what a safeguards inspector does. And in addition to this video, while it's interesting, there are many videos on the IAEA website that describes what different activities the IAEA is involved in, and describes a lot of different jobs and review services and things like that. It gives you a lot of information. The Junior Professional Officer Program is run by Brookhaven National Laboratory, and this is the website for that program for anyone that may be interested. There was also an interesting BBC video. They have a program called Hard Talk, and there was an interview with the new IAEA DG Rafael Grossi from Argentina. It was just a few weeks ago, and that was a pretty interesting video. So I thought I'd put the address for that talk on there. I found it pretty interesting. So with that, that's the end of the information that I had intended to provide. I know I went through it pretty quickly, but again, just in summary, the IAEA provides support to member states in a really wide range of nuclear and activities for nuclear activities and radiological aspects, both from a source standpoint and a nuclear professional standpoint. This photograph shows the Vienna International Center kind of from a distance, but that whole complex there, not all of it is IAEA. There are a number of UN organizations that are housed in that Vienna International Center. The biggest one is IAEA, but there's also an illicit drug trafficking organization there. There's what's called CBTBO, which is the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization, which is the organization that monitors the globe for nuclear weapons testing, which is an interesting organization, and their headquarters is in Vienna. Also, an organization called UNIDO, which is the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. Their headquarters is also in Vienna. So with that, I guess I'll pretty much end the presentation and see if anyone has any questions.
All right. Thanks a lot, David. And this was really excellent and wonderful presentation. And it was very informative. And I for sure did not know that IAEA is involved in so many nuclear related activities. So I don't know how we do a virtual applause. I'm not sure, but from all of us, a big thank you for that. And I'm going to now talk about, let's see if we have any questions. Yeah, we have two, and it seems it's coming from the same individual, Urkol. Okay, so the very first one, kind of interesting, relevant to the current situation. And he's asking that how is the current pandemic with regards to SARS and COVID affecting the operation of IAEA?
Yes, from my friends and colleagues that are still working at IAEA, the vast majority of them are working from home. Many of their activities are, I don't want to say administrative, but they're technical paperwork in nature, scheduling and coordinating. So a lot of that can be done remotely. The inspectors that actually go out into the field, some of them they're still doing their jobs. They're going out into the field and conducting safeguards inspections as they have to. But some of the staff is still coming into work, but they're doing it on a case-by-case basis. They apparently reviewed all the different jobs there at IAEA, saw which ones could be done remotely, and those people are encouraged to work at home, only come into the office when they have to. Many of the meetings that used to be conducted face-to-face are now conducted remotely, via Zoom or Teams or some other remote viewing mechanism. But yeah, it has impacted the work physically at the agency, but they're still continuing on with their work. As far as me, retirees are no longer allowed into the Vienna International Center, so I can't go in there now because family members and visitors and retirees are not allowed access right now, only necessary staff.
I see. Okay. So the second question also would be, can you talk about the climate change and the role of IAEA in nuclear power? What does the 2015 Paris Agreement say about that?
Oh, I wish I could address that, but I really don't have any information on that. All I can say from a climate change standpoint, one of the aspects of nuclear power plant development is they have to take into account those aspects of geology, geography, and potential weather and external events, including flooding, storms, and things like that. So those types of activities are required to be conducted or to be evaluated in the development of nuclear power plant siting and things like that. So those activities are considered as part of the normal activities in developing a nuclear power program. But as far as the specific Paris Climate Accord, I'm not sure how that's taken into account specifically, or even if it is.
I see. Okay, now I think I overlooked, there are more questions coming in. Let's see. This is from Andrew. Thank you, Mr. Graves. What is your educational background? Is it nuclear engineering?
Yeah, actually, my degree is nuclear engineering technology. I consider like nuclear engineering light. But yes, I just have a bachelor's degree, and basically what allowed me to get into IAEA was not only the degree, but the experience that I have, because I've been in the nuclear business, the nuclear field for 40 years, so the experience, I think, weighed much more heavily than the educational background. I
see. And so there was another interesting question. This is from Eric. And Eric is asking what sub were you on? I'm assuming the submarine he's talking about.
Oh, what was the question again?
What sub were you on?
Oh, what submarine was I on? Oh, the SSBN 658, the USS Mariano G. Vallejo. It was a fleet ballistic missile submarine. I was on it back in the 70s. But it's out of commission now. It's scrap iron now. It's been decommissioned and cut up.
I see. So those are the questions coming from our students. Let's see if there is any other questions. I don't see it.
Here's a question from Zach, Dr. Kumar. Do you see it?
Okay. And I'm not sure. I'm not seeing it in the chat box.
Okay, do you mind if I read it?
Absolutely. Okay, yeah.
Okay, this is from Zach. He says, first of all, he's very jealous of the view that you have there in Vienna. It's not quite the same here in Arlington, as we all know. Secondly, what are some of the regulatory challenges that the IAEA and the NRC face as hopefully Gen 3 plus and Gen 4 nuclear reactors become a reality?
Yeah, some of the regulatory challenges we saw were very, I guess, have been long-standing and similar, especially for newcomer countries that are just interested in getting into nuclear power. Many of them don't have a very well-developed regulatory infrastructure in their country. Some of these countries are, I'll say, poor countries. So not a lot of money. The governments don't have a lot of money to spend on regulatory infrastructure. As they're interested in nuclear power, let's see, how do I say this? they run into the challenge where the government typically gets involved in funding the development of the nuclear power plant, as well as being tasked with developing the regulatory infrastructure for that same industry, which tends to put them in the environment the US was in back in the 50s and 60s with the Atomic Energy Commission. One of the things we strongly encourage them to do is to make sure that their regulator is independent of the operator, the operating organization, such that they can provide independent safety oversight and regulation. And that is a continuing challenge with many member states. Another interesting thing that we saw coming up was an example would be the conventional nuclear safety, which more or less commits member states to following IAEA safety standards and all those documents, is the development of floating reactors. At least one country has developed mobile floating reactors, which the question comes up, how does that fit into the regulatory framework for land-based reactors? So that was another interesting concept. A lot of the regulations are based in light water technology. So as new designs come up, not only with Gen 3, Gen 4 plants, but new innovative reactors that use something other than light water for moderation or for cooling, the regulatory framework needs to look to make sure that those activities are covered or captured by the existing framework, and if not, modified accordingly. So those are some of the challenges faced.
So as a follow-up, and this is coming from me, David. So in US, I know that we have NRC that provides the regulatory oversight. Okay, so and US is also a member country. So is there any kind of a overlap or a conflict between IAEA safety standards and what NRC prescribes?
As a matter of fact, not really. The IAEA provides the guidance via the safety requirements and safety standards, but it doesn't have to be word for word. The member state can take that guidance, take the requirements and the guides, and they can implement them in their country basically however they choose. But ideally, they would still take the concept or the requirement and just use it within their regulatory framework, as long as the safety function gets implemented. The mechanism by which they do it is okay. So for NRC standpoint, they would take the IAEA safety standards, and then as long as the safety standard is implemented into NRC regulations, that would be satisfactory. I mean, that's fine.
I see. So I think with that, and with the 1 hour window closing in now, I think we should be done with question and answer. So our last part, I think Dr. Kenerangui, he has an important announcement to make. And if he has any questions, David, I'm just going to turn it over to him.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Dr. Mary Danzig Guar, she's the president of ANS, American Nuclear Society. She will be presenting a seminar to a multi-student ANS sections within the UT system on Tuesday, March 23rd at 9:30 to 10:30 Central Time. So if you are interested, you can contact Zachary Bailey, and then we can provide the link for it. Thank you.
All right, I think with that, we come to an end. And again, David, we really appreciate your time. It should be what, 8 o'clock there or 9 o'clock or?
It's almost 8 o'clock.
Almost 8 o'clock. Okay. So I really appreciate spending your lovely evening with us. and it was again very informative. And on behalf of everyone, I take this opportunity to thank you very much. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll be
Thank
in
you.
touch.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.